Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
Hello, everyone. This is Haley Mandrup at Redtail, and today we're going to be talking all about your calendar. So we're doing a Redtail Essentials course on the calendar today, and I'm really excited to share that with you. So let's dive on in, shall we? When we first log into the CRM, we find ourselves on the Today page, and the Today page is great to see your activities that are due today in list view. But what a lot of us are used to seeing, and a lot of us are used to managing our calendar on, is an actual calendar. Go figure, am I right? So if you go to calendar on the left-hand navigation menu over here, it's going to take you to your default view. And I'm going to get into your default view in a little bit of preferences at the very end. But my default view is week view, and that's why it pushed us right into this week. But there are also the day and the month view over here in the top right-hand corner. You can navigate to the month view, the week view, or the day view. Now, whenever I'm training on the calendar, I always make sure to mention we didn't reinvent the calendar. We know that you've used a calendar before, whether it's your wall hanging calendar, a desk calendar, an Outlook calendar, or any other internet calendar like Google and so on. So by no means do we think we reinvented the wheel here, and we didn't try and make it confusing. It's not an octagon or a triangle. It's your normal calendar. But more so today, what I'd like to point out are going to be where the features are on the Redtail calendar. Because sometimes when you're using a new program or a new program to you, it's hard to find those preferences that we know are there and just can't locate. So in the top right-hand corner, we've got day, week, and month. They do just what they say they do. If we're on the month view, we can toggle to week and day. Something that I will point out is that today is Thursday, May 23rd, so it's highlighted yellow. That's just to give you a quick glance which day is today. So if you've got something on yesterday or tomorrow, it's easy to tell that it's not on today. And then this little red line will follow you throughout the day. So right now I'm in Pacific time. It's 11:02 a.m. and this red line is indicating that that's right where I'm at in the middle of my day, is at 11:02. It's really useful for knowing what time it is, what day it is. So if I'm on the phone with the client and they say they want it to come in at 1 today, it's pretty late notice, but I can go ahead and click on the calendar at 1 p.m. today, 1 p.m., 5:23, and the activity already set it to that time and day for me. So I can go ahead and say I'm going to have a call with Henry. And then we're going to go ahead and make that a phone call, because it's going to be a phone call, and then our category is going to be whatever he wants to talk about. So Henry's a pretty positive guy. Let's say that we're just going to go ahead and talk about money movement. Probably he's moving some money around, whatever it is. And then from this activity box, this isn't your normal activity box for a lot of you regular users. It's a very simple version of it. I don't have the opportunity to enter in any notes here. I can't add additional attendees, and that's by design. Sometimes when we're adding an activity, we just want it to be something super quick. It's going to be a phone call. I don't need to add a bunch of notes here. So I'm going to go ahead and just create that activity using this green button, and it will go off onto my calendar, and I can move on and continue to work on the calendar on other things. If I do pick that create and edit, it's then going to take me to that full activity screen that you're used to seeing with all the additional activity options. I like to say activities can be as simple or as complex as you need them to be, and this is a very simple screen to make a very simple activity very quickly. And I can even link in Henry's name up here at the top. I'm not really going to go into activities though, because we have a whole video on activities and working with them specifically. So just quickly, the main benefit of this is where I click on the calendar, it schedules the activity for that time where I clicked on the calendar. So we'll go ahead and create that activity. So we have something on our calendar for today. Give us a refresh here. And we've got our activity. So Let's select all users, and we're going to get more items on the calendar. And then we've got our call with Henry right here. So that brings me to all of these other options up here in this top left-hand corner of the calendar. Let's start with navigate. Now, navigate is your typical ability to navigate very far in the past or very far in the future, depending on where you're looking or where you'd like to navigate to. If you'd like to skip to a certain month, you can also click on the top month. It'll take you to the months, and then March, and I can click back on March and click on the year, and I could go all the way out to 2082, or I can go ahead and go back to 1834. Wherever I'd like to go on the calendar, you can definitely get there quicker by clicking on those dates. Now, obviously, I'm giving you extreme dates here, folks, but the point is you can get quickly to somewhere in the past or in the future just by clicking on the years up at the top. So that's all our navigate button does. It's just here to help us. One more benefit is if you do find yourself in the middle of the 1830s, it's okay. You can easily get back to today just by clicking on today, and the calendar will take you back to today, like your own time travel. The next option here is going to be under Actions. Now, Actions is the most robust button on the calendar, and I say that because this is where you get to customize a lot about the calendar. Our very first option is super exciting. You get to change the colors. So you'll notice that my colors are a little wacky. They're all set up. We've got reds, we've got oranges, totally crazy. I've got pinks, greens, this very bright lime green. Well, the great thing about the calendar is that when you pick a color, it's actually just for the username that you're logged in as. So you're not changing your boss's calendar or your assistant's calendar to bright pink. That's just for you. So I'll take bright pink here for my consultation. And then what's super cool is if I think that I want all of my appointments to be a certain color for when I need to be in person at the office, then instead of trying to find that exact same color on this big color square, you can copy the color code just by highlighting it with your mouse and then using Control-C, Control-V. Control-C is to copy, Control-V is to paste, or you can right-click over it to copy and paste as well. So I went ahead and copied that color code, and now I can make all of these activity types the same just by pasting it in. It's a very simple way to do it. Now you can use a bunch of crazy colors. You can use grays or whites, whatever you'd like. One thing I do like to point out is that the completed background color is different than when the activity is open. So what I found offices do, and they found a lot of success with, is maybe the open calendar item is a brighter red, and the completed is also a red, but it's going to be more of a pastel version. Or you can do the opposite as well. But then easily at a glance, you can say, oh, those are my open appointments, and those are the appointments I've completed. I can tell they're the same color, it's just a diluted version of that color. Personally, when something's completed, they're all the same to me. So personally, all my completed activities are a nice gray color. And then once everything's completed, my whole calendar's gray, and that means I've done everything and I can go home at the end of the day. But it's all up to you. You get to personalize this. You are the only person who sees these colors, so you're not changing anything wacky for your coworkers. And the colors are determined by activity type. So you'll notice we have an audit here for Jim, an audit for Tabitha, an audit for Tucker. If you do want your colors to be determined by user, this is a workaround for you guys. You can add the same activity type for Jim, Tabitha, and Tucker, and then if Jim's having an audit, then he can choose this activity type. His will be blue, Tabitha's will be green, and Tucker's will be orange, or whatever it is. So that's a good way to still assign color by user. Now, seminars, workflows, reminders, and holidays all also have their own color options. So seminars pulls from seminars over here on the left. Whenever you've scheduled an event or planned an event for your office, seminars is going to be over here. You can choose that color. Workflow tasks, mine are black right now, so I'm gonna change those to, I like them to be, actually I think on my calendar they're this turquoise. So then once I update this, you're gonna see all of these black workflow tasks over here on Saturday and down here on the bottom of Tuesday. They're all gonna change this turquoise color, and you'll see how the changes take effect right away. Same idea with reminders and holidays. And holidays is a fairly new feature, so feel free to go ahead and toggle the color for the holidays as well. Once I click the Save Colors, the page is going to refresh for us. And now we're going to have a bunch of turquoise workflow tasks. So they're a little bit easier to read, not white text on a black background. One thing a lot of users also like to do is for the birthdays, if you're showing your birthdays, there might be a lot of birthdays on the calendar, so you can change them to white and then they just blend in with the background. So for example, I've got client birthday here for Daniel, a client birthday here for Mikey, and I found that a lot of offices like to change the birthday color under reminders to birthdays to white, and then it's just a little less abrasive, less obvious. If we show those birthdays under actions, show client birthdays, they're going to pop up. And there we go. So now we see our client birthdays. Now, under actions, aside from change colors, you have a couple toggle options. And when I say toggle, I mean that they're only going to last for the session that you're in the calendar for. So if I leave this calendar and go to reports or opportunities or seminars or a contact record, I'm going to have to re-toggle the option to show or hide all-day events, show or hide completed activities, show or hide client reviews, seminars, workflows, client birthdays. You get the idea. So all of those options here where they say show, 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 I'll switch this one over, show, show, show. So all of these show holidays, you can toggle these off to hide them, and then it will hide them going forward for the session that you're in. Now all of these, or most of these, can be permanently set, so you don't always have to click show client birthdays to see your client birthdays. That's an option in your preferences that we will get to. Second to last, your second to last option down here is the subscribe to Ical feed. Now this is not your Apple Ical. I know it sure sounds like an Apple product. It actually means internet calendar. It's an online protocol that was written by Google, and it's just an internet calendar at the end of the day. So what you can do is you can set this up to send your calendar to an internet calendar like Yahoo or Google or AOL or MSN or any of those internet calendars or Outlook that you're using. It is a one-way, once-a-day feed. So it'll send the calendar over to that calendar once a day, and then you're only going to be able to view it there. Anything added there will not come back into Redtail. It's a very limited calendar integration. We have a much better option around now. It's called Retriever Cloud, and I'll point out another video on Retriever Cloud and how to set that up, because it's a very exciting dual sync back and forth with Outlook. But if you're just looking for the one-way calendar feed, totally fine. That's what this iCal will do for you. And if you do use it on an Apple device, it tends to sync more than once a day in my experience. It just syncs better with those Apple devices. And then finally, the option to print. If you are a printer and you like to print paper, that's okay. We can print your calendar just by clicking print here. It's going to download a PDF, and you don't have to be printing it. You could just have it as a PDF on your desktop. We'll open that guy up here. And then it's going to show us our calendar in the view that we were viewing it in, which was week view. So we've got a graphic display of it here. We've got our birthdays, our follow-up appointments, and then if we scroll down, we have a list view of the same items. So we can see a review with Bruce, 9:30 to 10:30, just in case the whole subject wouldn't fit here, or the times were a little bit more specific than 9:30 to 10:30. We get two different views of the calendar. After actions come 3 more options, and these options are all what you're viewing on this calendar in this, not only in this session. So the option to select users, to select activity types, and to select activity categories, these preferences, once you select them, will stick going forward, and they're retained in the cookies in your browser. So what that means is if you log out or you close Redtail, you turn your computer off, and you log back in, you turn it all on, log it back in the next day, those preferences are still going to be remembered. So let's talk about these. When I'm viewing the calendar, if I have a larger office, seeing everyone's activities could become overwhelming very fast. So you do have the option to just select yourself, or me. That means the logged in user. So you can go ahead and select yourself, and then only your activities will show. But maybe you work on a team in the office and you want to see everyone on that team. So what you can do is select the members of that team that you want to go ahead and be able to view within the database. So I'll select all those additional users, and now I'm going to see all of their activities on the calendar as well. Now, if I leave the calendar, I have 5 users selected. If I leave the calendar and go back to my Today page, the cookies in my browser are going to remember that I had 5 users selected, and when I go back to the calendar, all 5 of those users are still selected. But if you noticed, I also had the calendar or the client birthdays selected to show as well, and those are no longer showing. That's because I ended that calendar session. So these actions only last for temporary sessions, and then the users will last going forward in that computer, in that browser. I believe the only exception to that is going to be your holidays, but I want to double check that. But no, the holidays are only a toggle as well. So anything under actions is only for the session that you're on the calendar for, and then anything under your users, your types, and your categories is going to be going forward. It can get tricky too. Sometimes if you're looking at your calendar and you only want to see your client reviews, you could come into types, select client reviews. Well, now my calendar looks pretty empty. If I forgot that I only selected client review, that might cause a brief moment of panic in my life. I might look at my calendar and go, where's all my activities? It's okay. Always get in the habit of looking up to the top and seeing, oh, it's okay, I only have 1 type selected. Let's unselect that. And when nothing is selected, everything shows. That's because we understand that moment of panic that you can get. So when nothing is selected, everything will show by default. And then same idea goes with categories. You can select only certain categories, and then only those will display going forward. So a common application of this is for a lot of offices who have a lot of tasks. If you have a lot of tasks, they will stack up under the all day section here, and they'll really start to knock the calendar view down on the page. What you can do is select all of your activity types except for your tasks and unselect the tasks. Then it will filter out all of your tasks and only show activities that are timed that you need to go ahead and work on. All right, so now we're going to get to our preferences. But before I leave the calendar, I want to point out that this calendar starts at 7 a.m. right here on the left, and then it ends at 5 p.m. And if you'll notice, each of our hours within this week view are broken into 4 segments. So 60-minute hour broken into 4 segments, that's going to be 15-minute increments. The reason I want to point that out is because a couple of our preferences are going to allow us to change that if you start earlier or later than 7 a.m. So where are our preferences? Our preferences are under our name in the top right-hand corner and preferences. I know, it was hidden. It was hidden right there. Under your name, preferences, then you'll have a lot of different options here. I'm only going to point out a couple. First, your time zone. Make sure your time zone is accurately reflecting where you are. That's going to help with calendar scheduling, especially if you have people in offices that are in different time zones. Next, I'm going to scroll down just a tad to activity management. The activity management section is where you can set your calendar preferences. So first, the very first preference here is super handy for you admins or client service associates or anyone who's working a lot on the tasks, not necessarily appointments. But it could also be helpful to you advisors because you're typically scheduling appointments all day or client meetings and that kind of stuff. This first option will say default to create all day events. So what that means is if I go to click my quick add and add an activity, then it defaulted to the first half hour that is going to come up. So right now it's 11:20 a.m. Pacific time. The next half hour is 11:30. If it was 11:31, it would have defaulted to 12 p.m. It just goes to whatever the next half hour mark in the day is. That's really convenient if I'm an advisor or someone who's constantly scheduling time blocks on my calendar as I go throughout the day. But for someone who's more task oriented, you can switch that to a yes, save that preference. And now this preference is going to default to all day. So when I click my quick add and go to activities, it defaulted to all day. It's just going to be a click saver at the end of the day. So you're not constantly checking the all day box because it's already selected for you as a default. The next one is another very useful one, default activity type. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If I want my activities to come up as appointment or task, I would set my default activity type, save my preferences, and then when I go to add an activity, it's going to default to a task. So I'm going to add an activity, it's all day, and it's a task. Just as easy as that. The next one is the one I mentioned at the very beginning of our video today, default calendar view. If you're a day view, a month view, or a week view person, you get to go ahead and select that. We do not have a work week version right now, so it's going to be day, month, or week, and week is going to show you Sunday through Saturday, and the week does start on Sunday. The default calendar start time, that's where I pointed out that my calendar starts at 7 a.m. If you start earlier than that, that's awesome. You can set that at 5 a.m. If you're a developer, you can come in around 10 a.m. and just adjust it to whenever you'd like. But keep in mind, if you're looking at the calendar in week or day view, where it starts at a certain time, and your calendar starts at 8 a.m., you will not see a 7 a.m. activity. You'll only see that one in month view. Definitely something to be aware of. And that mostly applies to evening activities. If you like to schedule your personal activities on here and have a kid's soccer game, or maybe you have a tax seminar at 6:30, but your calendar stops at 5, it might behoove you to go ahead and set this calendar to go till 9 o'clock, just so you can view it and have that visual reminder if you're in day or week view. The next preference is your default calendar time slots. Right now I have it to 15, but you can set it to 30 or 60 depending on your preference. It's just going to take away a lot of the lines on the calendar, but that's all it's going to do. And all of these preferences are just for yourself. So if you're worried about changing the view of the calendar for other people in your office, don't worry, it will only change the view for yourself. If they do want to be able to see the calendar the way that you've set yours up, then you can go ahead and help them adjust their preferences under their login. And now we've gotten down to our defaults for the actions menu that was on the calendar, where we got to toggle to see the completed activities for just a minute, but if we left the calendar and came back, they would no longer show. Here we can go ahead and say, yes, I would like to view my completed activities, client reviews, client birthdays, marital anniversaries, seminars, and workflow tasks, all by default. So that's immediately putting a lot more information on my calendar right away when I go to view it. Or you can mix and match, yeses to some, nos to others. The very bottom option here is going to allow Ical access. This goes hand in hand with the ability to send to an Ical calendar. So first, this must be turned to yes before you go to the calendar to go ahead and link it to an internet calendar like your Google or Yahoo calendars. All right, we've changed all of our preferences here, so we're going to go ahead and save those preferences. And then if we go back to the calendar, one final preference actually that I'd like to point out is if you like to start your day by looking at your calendar, a very useful preference is actually setting your default login screen to the calendar. So you can do that. It's the very first preference on your preferences page, default login screen, calendar. And then when you log in initially, it will take you directly to the calendar. It's a great little tidbit there. So we'll head back over to the calendar, and then you'll see my new start time is 5 a.m. over here on the left. And then I've got all of my birthdays and marital anniversaries and all my reminders already showing by default. So that about wraps up the calendar, folks. We didn't reinvent the calendar, but it's just all about learning how to use it effectively within Redtail, knowing where all your preferences are, and knowing how you can customize it and make it work for you.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.